Once upon a time, there were two builders. One was called Mr. Foolish, and the other was called Mr. Wise. Both builders had the same idea. Each of them wanted to build a house. Mr. Wise started his house by digging a hole in the ground. Mr. Foolish thought this was very funny. He chuckled to himself and said, "What is he doing?" Mr. Foolish started his house. He laid the first bricks and started to build the walls. He built the walls higher and higher. Mr. Foolish was very pleased with how quickly his house was taking shape. Meanwhile, Mr. Wise was still digging a hole. It looked very hard work. Mr. Foolish put the doors and windows into his house. And before long, he was putting the roof on. His house was being built so quickly. Soon, Mr. Foolish's house was finished, and he went inside to make a cup of tea. By now, Mr. Wise had dug a huge hole. Then he did the strangest thing. He started to fill the hole back in again. Mr. Wise filled the hole in completely until the ground was flat again. He seemed very pleased with his work. Mr. Foolish thought this was hilarious. What an idiot! Why has he dug a big hole just to fill it back in again? At last, Mr. Wise started to build the walls of his house. He built the walls higher and higher. He put the windows and doors in. And then he put the roof on. Finally, Mr. Wise's house was finished, and he could go inside for a well-earned cup of tea. Both builders had now finished building their houses, and both houses looked great. But then the clouds came in, and it started to rain. The rain came down on Mr. Wise's house, but his house was strong, and Mr. Wise was safe and dry inside. Mr. Foolish, however, was looking a little worried. His house was starting to creak and bang, and he was sure that he felt a drip of water. Suddenly there was a great crash as the roof of Mr. Foolish's house completely collapsed. The whole house fell down and was nothing more than a pile of bricks. Poor Mr. Foolish. He didn't look very happy now. Mr. Wise couldn't help but chuckle to himself. Mr. Foolish had made fun of him when he had dug a foundation for his house, but this had made his house strong in the storm. Mr. Wise felt sorry for Mr. Foolish, so he invited him over to his house for a cup of tea.